conversation was at the JSO directors meeting slash dinner
board
at
of
the
directors.
Jones.
I'm now on their board of directors.
Are you really?
Yeah, I feel honored. I really do feel honored.
I should give a shout out to the Joneses as well. Miles and his wife who did a fabulous job in putting on this party in Clark Lake last night.
Despite the
for
heat.
the directors, despite the heat, it was absolutely phenomenal. They did a great job, and it was a lovely party. But yeah, the Waldrons, it was a very spirited conversation. And also with Jennifer, I can't remember her last name. She's the second in command, or maybe the second person at the Tourism Bureau. I never knew there was
Experience Jackson.
I never knew there was a tourism bureau in Jackson. But
well,
I had a nice conversation with her and her fiance.
You just have a tricky name.
Yeah.
Experience Jackson.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a shout out I have.
Very good.
Okay, and my shout out, I'm going to start with Scott Ames. He says he's listening today, so Jackie's going to verify that when she comes in there after this to go talk to him about bus route maps. And his sidekick, Nick Nolte. Oh, don't tell Nick, though, that I called him a sidekick, Scott.
Nick who?
Nolte. Isn't that a great name?
I thought he was in jail.
You should see the picture of that guy.
This is a much younger,
like a
nicer,
Man.
prettier version of the star.
Okay.
And then there's the coffee crew at the Y. Do you know who they are?
No, I don't.
Okay. So we have Terry Cole, Cliff Souls, Wayne Mueller, Jim Winter Jr., John Lubin, and Gerald Jenkins. And Cliff Soul turned 73 on Saturday. So I hope it's a happy birthday shout out. And then the leader of the pack is Susie Hale. She works down there at the Y. So that's my shout out.
Salute.
Salute. They're supposed to have the show running right now in the weight room at the Y. Just so you know, they're lifting weights to us.
Oh wow.
They probably put it on because they want to be distracted from lifting. You go for an hour at the Y. You say I did an hour exercise, but you were spending 30 minutes of it watching TV.
Right.
No, you're 30 minutes talking
right,
because you know everybody. The other thing I want to talk about before we get started is the Amazing Race with Fitness Council. Scott's going to be on the air later with Mark Daly, but we've got. It's August 17th. Teams are $80 a team, and we're starting at the amphitheater. You get a clue, you find the location, you go do the activity, you get the next clue, go to the next location, and so on. Be cash awards for the winners. There'll be a timed whoever comes in first will team that comes in first, and then the team that gets the most points. Normal citizens who don't want to compete physically can compete online.
Really?
Yeah, so we're gonna, you can email, we'll send you a clue, and you can send us back what you think the answer is, and then your name will go in a pot to win a membership to the YMCA.
Wow.
A 1-year membership. So far we have sponsors Derek Dobies, Miller Shoes, the Y Center, Career Quest, and our title sponsor is Experience Jackson, and Thinking Real Estate.
Very good.
So, some good things. You can go to the fitnesscouncil.org website to find out more information, or call our office, 780-3800.
And assuming the weather cooperates on Saturday, I'll be doing another event, which is the Women on Wheels bike tour out of Mason on Saturday morning. If anybody's interested, just Google Women on Wheels, Michigan, and you can get the info on that bike.
That's a fundraiser for?
That's a fundraiser. I'm not sure exactly what the charity is. I was just told about this yesterday by someone who lives up in Okemos, and I decided I would show up. If it's not storming on Saturday morning, I'd go ahead and do the ride. You get 17 miles, 38 miles, and 50 miles. I think are different lengths, something like that. But it's supposed to be a really good ride. I got good reviews. All right, Laura, what are we talking about?
We are going to talk about setbacks. We had an issue where we have a buyer for a property, and the well is on the other property, or encroaches onto the neighbor's property. So the bank is requiring that the seller deed 10 feet of property to the buyer for the neighbor. The neighbor has to deed 10 feet of property to this property that's being sold. And then they're going to escrow the summer and winter taxes because of the property change.
Now, do we have a lawyer here?
In the house?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Could you explain what a setback is?
Yeah, actually, she's talking about an encroachment. She's used a misnomer there on her particular circumstance, but she did raise.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose at all. But she also was talking about what you and I were talking about before we started, which is this case over in Bloomfield Township, or somewhere in Oakland County, where the house is being built, $1 million plus house. And I think it's a setback issue. I don't think it was an encroachment issue, and there are a couple of things that arise. But in the well circumstance that Laura's talking about, that's actually the well of this particular house encroaches onto the adjoining property. The way they're going to handle the encroachment, apparently they could do it by an easement, by the way. They could grant an easement for the well and the line coming back from the well. Apparently the lender or somebody is insisting that they get title to that additional 10 feet. Seems a little bit like overkill to me. As I say,
Well, they're lucky the seller is agreeing to it, or the neighbor is agreeing
right.
to
Oh
it,
yeah,
aren't they?
right. Yeah, absolutely. Because if the neighbor didn't agree to it, it's pretty easy. Now, look, it's not that uncommon for wells to be shared by property owners, but there should be a joint well agreement. All too often, wells were installed 34 years ago, and no agreements were put in place. And if you don't have that agreement in place, now you got an issue. But fortunately, the neighbors cooperated on that one. They're going to sell them the 10 feet is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Selling them the 10 feet, and then.
Okay. And who's
I don't know.
Jackie, who's insisting upon that? Is the lender doing it, or who's?
The neighbors agreed before we even got the purchase agreement.
Okay.
So.
I was going to say, they don't
So
really.
they knew it was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Because you can do it by agreement. You don't
Are
have
the
to do it by
lots-
transfer of
Are
title.
the lots?
They are transferring the title though.
Are the lots big enough to?
Yeah, I was going to say, the issue when you transfer 10 feet from the neighbor's property is now the neighbor may end up violating the setback for the new property line. So they have to be real careful that they're not doing that.
I don't know. Maybe Ron Ellison can call in and talk about it.
This
here.
house in
Oh.
Detroit, though, they said you'd have to cut 6 foot off the house.
Yeah, well.
Only
they-
6 feet? I thought it was over the property line. Because if you're over the property line, you still have a setback. Usually, typical setbacks, I would have to say, are about 5 or 10 feet. So if it's over the property line by 6 feet, they should have to cut off 16 feet of the house.
Okay, well, let's back
My
up a little
opinion,
bit.
but I'm not a
Let's back
lawyer.
up, because I thought the case in Bluefield Township was actually a setback violation, not an encroachment. But there is a case decided by the Michigan Court of Appeals, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, of a multi-million-dollar house in Bloomfield Hills where there was I think it was an ordinance violation. It wasn't an encroachment. And I can't remember if it was a violation of a height restriction or whether it was a violation of the side setback. But the owner of the house, it was started construction, and either the municipality, but I believe it was the next door neighbor, brought an action to stop it based upon the violation. The owner who was constructing the house continued the construction despite the fact that this issue was in litigation. The trial judge ultimately held that there was a violation and said you're going to have to demolish the house because it violates the restriction. The owner appealed to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals upheld the trial judge, saying yes, you're going to have to demolish the structure because you proceeded knowing that this issue was under litigation, even though there wasn't an injunction stopping the construction, you run the risk. And so the same thing's going to happen to this case in Bloomfield, I'm sure, if they continue the construction. Is it already constructed, fully
Oh, yeah.
constructed? You know, it's done.
Beautiful.
Now,
And
now,
nobody
now.
complained about it prior, as it was going up? And I'm wondering if the property owners knew about it, and,
If it's a setback violation, you wonder how they got a permit, although if it's a setback violation, or if it's a setback which is a private subdivision restriction and not a municipal requirement, you know, the municipality might require 10 feet, but the private subdivision restrictions or the condominium restrictions, if it's a site condo, might require 25 or more feet. So you got to decide, you got to figure out which violation it is. But in Michigan, let me deal with setback violations and encroachments. If they got a building permit and it's valid, and they violated a setback or they encroached on the neighbor's property, and it was what we call a quote innocent mistake, end quote. In other words, nobody knew exactly where the boundary was, and so the violation occurred as a result of innocent conduct. It wasn't under litigation, that
Right.
sort of thing. Then we have a rule in Michigan that says you can keep the structure there. If it's an encroachment, you'll have to pay the adjoining property owner the value of the property that is now occupied by that structure, the diminution in value. That's called the innocent mistake rule.
Well, I believe they had been negotiating quite quite a while, and they just could not come to an agreement.
Yeah, I think that's true, so I don't know.
And so they went and built it anyways?
No, it was
It
built.
was built.
Oh.
I'll have to check out the case. I just am not that familiar with it.
Yeah, I
saw
think it
on
was
the
Oakland
news,
County.
So, yeah, I think it was Bloomfield Township, if I'm not mistaken, maybe West Bloomfield. But, I mean, you have to, we do make a distinction between innocent mistakes and deliberate violations. If you make a deliberate violation,
I believe this was
an innocent mistake,
I believe so.
then usually the innocent mistake, and again, assuming they got a valid building permit from the municipality, and if the municipality made a mistake, and again, it's an innocent mistake on the part of the property owner, they're probably going to be able to leave it there. They're going to may have to work out something for the setback. If the neighbor didn't do anything while the construction was going on, it's going to be tough to have that structure removed. The case I was talking about 7 or 8 years ago, the construction continued even though the owner knew that there was or might be a violation.
I believe the report said his next step was to uproot the house and move it somewhere. And this, it looked like a big stone type house.
That can't be an easy task.
No,
can
this
it?
would be really, this would be nuclear.
Yeah, this was in the news. This was still at the circuit
Okay,
court
looking
level,
for it.
wasn't it? Or had it even reached the,
This
I'm
was
trying to
looking for
think of where it is. I just saw it.
Oh,
on the
it's been
news.
in court,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I'll
I'm
check
trying
it
to
out.
find it on my phone right now.
No, I'll get more info, but you know, the setback, it could be a municipal requirement under the zoning ordinance, or it could be, like I say, a private restriction.
Mansion
kind of
owner
setback.
faces demolition deadline. No, that's January.
All right.
No.
So anyway,
Um,
so yeah.
So I have a question then. So let's say I'm gonna just add a deck onto my property, and I know that I'm supposed to get a permit, and I know that I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to use a licensed builder. I don't think you have to use a licensed builder for decks, but let's just pretend you do. And I don't.
Well, if it's residential improvement, if it's an improvement to a residence, and I don't do it myself, the person doing it has to hold a residential builder's license under Article 24 of the Occupational Code. So it's gonna
That's
have
what
to
I
be
thought.
okay.
It has to, or
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
have any remedies under the law if I don't use somebody that has a license.
Residential builders, that probably has to have a license. If I do it myself, I don't need a license.
Yeah,
I
but
need a
if
permit.
if I hire someone who doesn't have a license to build a deck and they don't have a license, isn't my sole
Yeah.
problem that I don't have any remedy under the law to go after them?
Well, no, you have a remedy to go after them. They don't have a remedy to go after you. You'd have to look at the local ordinance,
Well,
see whether it's
anyhow,
gotta be a
my
licensed
point
contract.
is, I build a deck, I don't check into setbacks, and I
And
know
it
I'm supposed to
violates
get
the setback?
Yeah,
There's a legal term of art for this, you're toast.
really, okay.
Yeah, yeah, sure, you have an obligation, everyone is presumed to know the law, or to find out what the applicable law is, and if your deck violates the setback restriction, or creates an encroachment, you're toast, you're gonna pull it out. It's a lot easier than pulling out a stone house.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
This was-
So if I'm supposed to do any electrical work, you're supposed to hire a licensed electrician or a
Yeah,
licensed plumber.
Yeah, right,
that-
yeah.
And I
A
don't.
licensed,
Then what remedies does the municipality or does the,
well, if you've installed electrical or plumbing, which that now violates the code, although even if it's done by an unlicensed person, might be able to get a licensed contract, a licensed plumber or a licensed electrician who comes in, inspects it, and is willing to sign off on it, even though it's not his or her work, I probably would be okay.
they probably have to just pay the penalties under the ordinance?
For not getting the
outlined,
permit, for
right.
not getting the permit in the first instance, right.
Okay, but they're not gonna make them tear out the electrical and have it
Not
installed?
if it meets code,
Code.
but they're gonna have to go through, they'll have to do what's called an after-the-fact permit, an ATF permit, verify that everything was done according to code. If it's not, that licensed electrician or plumber is gonna have to bring it up.
I know in the case of water heaters, if you had installed a water heater without a permit and a plumber doing it, and the city, Jackson, goes through and does a home inspection, non-owner occupied home inspection, they're gonna make that water heater meet today's standards, not the standards of the day that you put it in.
Yeah,
So you put it
probably.
in 3 years ago, and now they require this little coupling that stops it from wiggling, you're gonna have to do all that.
Yeah, if it's deemed safety or health item, the fact that it met code when it was installed is irrelevant, because again, it's considered something that's important. Getting back to your encroachment, I'm about to file a lawsuit, as a matter of fact, against and I won't tell you where this is in the state of Michigan, but they came in and tore up part of the elevated yard of my clients and installed a retaining wall, and they went across a boundary that's been established by adverse possession for probably 40 or 50 years. And so what we're going to be doing is filing an action to get that removed because it cuts off so much of the yard. And we believe that they violated a private use restriction prohibiting improvements within a certain defined area, and we're going to seek to have those improvements removed, and those are subterranean improvements. So these things happen where people violate either municipal ordinances or private restrictions. Your remedy is to have the stuff pulled down or to get compensated
Okay,
for it.
well, we only have a couple minutes left, and as usual, I have more to say than you do.
Yeah, go for it.
You better hurry.
Right. We have a price reduction at 4620 Clark Lake Road, a really nice ranch on a carpeted slab, or not slab, carpeted crawl. Very clean, meticulous home. It's reduced down to 144.9. It is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. It's over 1,700 square feet. It sits on over an acre of land. It's got a park-like backyard. It's very cool. And then we are having an open house 1 to 2:30 on Sunday. One is at 511 West Washington, which is between 3rd and 2nd. And the driveway is an alley behind the house, so it's got an English type garden, attached garage. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 72.5. It's over 2,000 square feet. Very nice home. And then 740 West Washington, which is also a new listing, 1 to 2:30, and that's 99.9. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and that's over 1,700 square feet. That is on the alley that takes you to the church that sits on I think it's the First Presbyterian Church on Michigan Avenue. So those are open houses 1 to 2:30. And then on Friday is the high heel bike ride at noon. So get your high heels on, Greg, and come join us.
Sounds like fun.
You could do your news update from the high heel bike
Or your
ride
platform shoes.
downtown at Bucky Harris Park.
Okay, Amazing Race. Call your number. for info.
780-3800.
Okay.
We need sponsors, we need teams, and there's a party afterward. Everybody's welcome to come. Randy Rozak and the High Notes.
Farewell tour.
Yeah, we're part of its farewell tour.
Well, that's better than a memorial tour.
That's true. We'll see you next week.
Okay.